going to be honest, this is very, very important for the Dallas Wings because there is a obvious pick because you're not going to be great. Like, it depends. Sorry. There are two ways you go about this.
The Dallas Wings just won the draft lottery for the 2026 WNBA draft, securing the #1 pick. And here's what makes this moment absolutely critical. They're not just getting a high draft pick. They're getting the last elite modern big in women's basketball for the next 3 years. The decision they make with this pick will define whether this franchise competes for championships or wastes another generational opportunity. Because there are exactly two directions they can go, and only one of them makes sense long-term.
Then draft AZ Fudd as this complementary piece. Like, let's just say hypothetically, you manage to use the cap space and convince players, we're going UConn. We're going UConn. And you manage to convince, you just go, you know what, Tina Charles, you come in as our backup. You're going to be our backup center. Fee, Stewie, Azare. We can afford every one of yous. We can afford all three of yous.
So let's break down the actual options here. The Wings can go one of two ways with this pick. Option 1, make a massive push in free agency. Convince multiple All-Stars to come to Dallas. And then draft AZ Fudd as the complementary piece to win immediately. Option 2, accept that free agency might not work out. Draft Olivia Miles and build a long-term championship core with Paige Bueckers. Those are the only two legitimate paths forward. And the choice depends entirely on what happens between now and draft night in April.
With this weird free agency, look, it's in Dallas, but I mean, it doesn't really matter where it is. Where it's going to be, it's going to be Connecticut and Dallas. Then you draft AZ. Any scenario where they're trying to build, you take Awafam. And Awafam with Paige Bueckers is going to be like long-term, the only guard big combo that can compete with Caitlin Clark and Leah Boston.
Here's why this matters so much. Olivia Miles and Paige Bueckers represent the only guard big combination in college basketball right now that has the potential to eventually compete with Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. Not immediately, not in year 1, but 3 to 4 years down the line when both players are coming off their rookie contracts, that duo could legitimately contend for championships. Paige still has development ahead to reach the heights of rookie Caitlin Clark. Olivia has significant ground to cover before she's on Aaliyah Boston's level, but the trajectory is there. The foundation exists.
That's the best thing to do. When's the last time a WNBA team? When is the last WNBA team that won a title with a 6'7" center that couldn't move? When was that started? I'm just trying to think of bigs. 2021 Chicago Sky. I know they had Azare on their team, but I'm trying to think who's their starting center. Oh, it was Candace Parker, was it? Did Candace Parker start at center?
Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Dominique Malonga. There's a segment of people who think the Wings should draft her with the #1 pick. And I need to be direct about this. The game has moved past players like Malonga. She's 6'7". She can't move laterally at an elite level. And she's been remarkably average as a senior. When was the last time a WNBA championship team won with a traditional immobile 7-footer as their starting center? The 2021 Chicago Sky started Candace Parker at center, and she's a mobile, versatile player who can shoot. The 2020 Seattle Storm certainly didn't win with that archetype.
But basically, these Lauren Betts players, they know better. They just got off McCown. Yeah, like I'm glad people are starting to figure this shit out. That like, it's not that Lauren Betts is bad, and it's not like she has the Tiara McCown attitude issues. It's that the game's moved past Lauren Betts. Not only that, she's been so average as a senior. She has been so average.
The issue with Malonga isn't that she's a bad player. It's that the WNBA has evolved beyond her style of play. Modern championship teams need bigs who can switch defensively, step out to the perimeter, and create spacing offensively. When people point to her recent 5-for-5 performance against Southern University as evidence of her dominance, they're missing the context. Southern isn't even Southern anything specific. They're just Southern. They're based in Baton Rouge, They compete in the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and using that game as proof of elite ability is like celebrating a professional boxer for beating up an amateur.
But if we're being honest, like there's only two ways you go with this pick. You go with if you don't bring in all these incredible free agents to win a title immediately, you bring in Awafam, because Awafam is the best prospects here. If you don't, or if you want to go develop a duo with this draft, you draft Awafam, because I'm gonna be honest, there's no center in 2027 that's even close to Awafam.
So if the Wings strike out in free agency, if they don't land multiple All-Stars, if most players re-sign with their current teams, then Olivia Miles becomes the obvious choice. And here's the crucial part. There's no center in the 2027 draft even close to Olivia's caliber. There's no center in 2028, other than Sarah Strong, and the Wings aren't getting the #1 pick again to draft her. There's no big in 2029, from what we've seen so far in high school recruiting, that's remotely on Olivia's level. This is the year. This is the opportunity to secure an elite modern big.
You can count them on one hand. And modern bigs that are capable of playing in the WNBA and have the size, and have a huge size. There is, in my opinion, like Aaliyah is 6'3", but she's got enough size. I do think she's got enough size for it. So if you're talking about true modern bigs, it's like Aaliyah, that don't have to adapt. Aaliyah, Aja.
Let's talk about what defines a modern big in the WNBA. You can count them on one hand. Players who have the size to defend the rim, the mobility to switch onto guards, and the skill to space the floor offensively. Aaliyah Boston at 6'3" has enough size and elite mobility. Aja Wilson is the gold standard. Brianna Stewart operates as a wing big hybrid. Nafisa Collier fits this mold. Potentially Aaliyah Edwards if she develops her perimeter game more consistently. That's the list. It's not long, and Olivia Miles projects to be on it.
There are examples of players that could be, but like, there are so few. There are so few, like, players in the entire NBA or in WNBA that are Awafam. There's a lot of 45. Not 45. Geez, there is significantly more 40% 3-point shooters.
Then there are players with potential to become modern bigs. If Camila Cardoso develops a more consistent 3-point shot, she could fit. If Azzi Fudd adds more interior presence, though she's really more of a wing. There are examples of players who might evolve into this category, but the number of players who enter the WNBA already possessing all these skills is incredibly small. And that's what makes this draft pick so valuable.
Look, I think we'll know who's going to go #1 based on free agency. I don't think we're going to know who's going to be #1 based on this pick. We're going to see how they do in free agency. Like, if we see Dallas striking out on the Stars, if we see most people going back to their normal teams or to their current teams, then absolutely we'll see them going for Awafam. Like, what they're not going to do is make a bunch of strikeout in free agency and then make a win now move in out Azzi Fudd. But they might make a win now pick if they do well in free agency.
Now here's where free agency changes everything. If Dallas manages to convince multiple All-Stars to come to Texas, if they somehow land Brianna Stewart or Aja Wilson or Nafisa Collier, then the calculation shifts entirely. In that scenario, you draft Azzi Fudd. You bring in a 40% 3-point shooter who can play off-ball, create spacing, and complement your star players immediately. You're building a win-now roster. But that only works if the free agency dominoes fall perfectly. And we'll know the answer to that question long before draft night. The reality is this. We're not going to know who Dallas selects with the #1 pick based on today's lottery results. We're going to know based on what happens in free agency over the next few months. If we see Dallas striking out on the big-name stars, if we see most players re-signing with their current teams or going to other markets, then it becomes crystal clear. They're drafting Olivia Miles. They're building for 3 to 4 years from now, not next season. But if we see Dallas making major moves, if they somehow convince multiple All-Stars that Texas is the place to be, then Azzi Fudd makes sense as the complementary piece. You don't strike out in free agency and then make a win-now pick. That's how franchises waste generational talent. That's how you end up with a confused roster that doesn't compete now and doesn't have a foundation for the future. What Dallas absolutely cannot do is draft Dominique Malonga. If they select her with the #1 pick, they might as well put up a sign that says it's still. The league has moved on from traditional and mobile centers who can't switch defensively or space the floor. Championship teams don't win that way anymore. The evidence is overwhelming. Think about the position this puts the Wings organization in. They have cap space. They have the #1. Every team in the league is dealing with major free agency decisions. Because so many stars are available, this is the most wide open the WNBA has been in years. Literally any team could compete for a championship next season if they make the right moves. Dallas has the resources to be aggressive. The question is whether they can actually close deals. And that's where the Olivia Miles versus Azzi Fudd debate becomes so important. Olivia represents patience. She represents building something sustainable that can compete for multiple championships over a 5-year window. Azzi represents urgency. She represents trying to win immediately with veteran stars and hoping the window stays open long enough to matter. Neither approach is wrong, but they require completely different supporting cast. You can't draft Olivia and then surround her with aging veterans on short-term deals. You can't draft Azzi and then fail to bring in established stars, leaving her as the best player on a rebuilding roster. The pick has to match the plan. Here's what makes Olivia Miles special as a prospect. She's not just a modern big who can do everything defensively and space the floor offensively. She's also someone who can grow alongside Paige Bueckers. They're both entering the league at the same time. They'll both be on rookie contracts for 4 years. Their timelines align perfectly. By the time they're both 25 or 26 years old, hitting their primes, they could be the foundation of a dynasty. Compare that to drafting Azzi and trying to win with players who are already 29, 30, 31 years old. Maybe you get one championship out of that core. Maybe. But then those veterans decline or leave in free agency, and you're left with Azzi as your franchise player without a supporting cast that makes sense. That's how teams end up in perpetual mediocrity. The other factor here is positional scarcity. There are significantly more elite guards in women's basketball than elite modern bigs. If you miss on Olivia Miles now, when do you get another chance to draft someone with her combination of size, mobility, and skill? The 2027 draft doesn't have anyone close. The 2028 draft has Sarah Strong, but Dallas isn't getting the #1 pick again. The 2029 draft is still too far away to evaluate properly. This might be a once-in-a-decade opportunity. Contrast that with guard. There are multiple 40% three-point shooters entering the league every year. There are ball handlers, shot creators, defensive specialists. The guard position has depth. You can find quality guards in the middle of the first round, in the second round, even as undrafted free agents. But elite bigs, they're rare. And when you have a chance to get one, you take it. So the question becomes, what does Dallas value more? The chance to compete immediately with a roster built around veterans and Azzi Fudd, or the opportunity to build something sustainable with Olivia Miles and Paige Bueckers as the foundation? Because those are the only two legitimate options. Everything else is either wishful thinking or organizational malpractice. Watch what happens over the next 3 months. Watch where the free agents sign. Watch whether Dallas can actually convince stars to come to Texas. That will tell you everything you need to know about who they're drafting with the #1 pick. And it will tell you whether this franchise is serious about building a championship contender or just hoping to stay relevant. Because here's the thing. Getting the #1 pick is a gift. It's an opportunity to change your franchise's trajectory. But only if you make the right decision. Only if you match the pick to your actual plan, not the plan you wish you had. Dallas has the chance to do something special here. They have the resources, they have the pick, they have the opportunity. The question is whether they'll be smart enough to take advantage of. So what do you think Dallas should do? Should they go all in on free agency and draft Azzi Fudd as the win now piece? Or should they accept reality, draft Olivia Miles, and build a championship core with Paige Bueckers for the next decade? Drop your take in the comments, because this decision is going to define the Wings franchise for the next 5 years. And if you want to see more WNBA draft analysis as we get closer to April, hit that subscribe button. We're breaking down every prospect, every team's needs, and every potential trade scenario between now and draft night.